Testing. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good morning, Fareed. Good morning. Okay. Is, is my screen share working okay? Can you let me know if you could see like the full screen and not just the like presenter mode? Okay. Okay, great. Are there any like announcements we need to share with them? I don't think so, right? At the beginning. I think we can just welcome them and just introduce Danielle, right? I don't think there's any announcements we need to make. Right. Okay. That sounds good. Hello. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Just fine, thanks. Thanks for helping us out again this morning.
No problem. It was fun last week and I enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Just so you know, we actually switched you to 1E for this morning. We had to make some
Okay.
changes with the grouping, so I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, 1E.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna here and I'm gonna look at their, because I didn't have access to the discussion boards, but Farid just gave me access again, or
Okay.
something got fixed overnight, but yeah, so I'm gonna look at their discussions now because I like to have an idea of what they wrote,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they had some interesting examples to share for the cross-cultural discussions for sure. So yeah, feel free to spend some time in there. Good morning, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
How are you?
Just fine, thanks. We're officially at the halfway point with the program, which is wild, so it's pretty exciting. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
Real good. How are you?
Good, thanks. We're just waiting on a couple more facilitators and then we'll start letting the Fulbrighters into the room as well.
I'm gonna go grab some water.
Yeah, go for it. Hey, Sonia.
I made it in.
You made it. Okay.
Gabby, I apologize. I didn't grab my group name.
Oh, no problem. You're 1A.
Thank you.
No problem. Does anyone have any last questions before we start letting folks in? Okay. Feeling good? Great. Perfect. We'll give it a couple more minutes here and then we'll open the floodgates. And everyone can see my screen okay, correct? With the intro slide? Okay, perfect, good. Good. Okay. Okay, perfect. All of our facilitators are here, so I'm gonna start letting the Fulbrighters in. Welcome everyone to today's synchronous session. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. In the meantime, if you could make sure you follow the instructions on the screen to get ready for today's session, that would be great. We'll get started promptly at around 8 a.m. Eastern time. Welcome for everyone who's just joining us. We'll get started in just a few minutes. In the meantime, just make sure you follow the instructions on the screen to prepare for the session. Mute your microphone, turn your camera on if you can, and make sure your breakout room name is displayed in your Zoom name so we can sort you into the appropriate breakout room. And we'll get started in just a few minutes. Welcome to everyone who's just joining us. We'll get started in just a few minutes. In the meantime, if you could make sure your microphone's muted, your camera is on, and your breakout room is displayed next to your Zoom name, that would be great. We'll get started momentarily. We're going to give people just a couple more minutes to join us. I see several people are still trickling in the waiting room. So in the meantime, again, just make sure your microphone's muted, camera is on. And if you haven't already, please rename yourself to display your breakout room name in front of your first and last name in Zoom. That would be helpful. We'll get started in just a few minutes once the waiting room dies down a little bit here. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to your third synchronous session in the Fulbright Gateway Orientation. Again, I'm Gabby. It's been so great really getting to know you all over this past week and a half. I've been really excited to see you all very active in the discussion boards in Canvas, kind of talking through your ideas with each other and engaging in this content. And today we are going to dive even deeper into some of those ideas that we've been thinking about as we meet today with our wonderful faculty presenter, Dr. Danielle Paget. So I'm going to turn it over to her in just a moment. We will hear a few words from her. And then as per usual, we will be separating out into our breakout rooms to have a thoughtful discussion surrounding some of the concepts that we introduced to you in the cross-cultural understanding module. So without further ado, Dr. Danielle Paget, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, let me unmute here. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm just going to take a few minutes here to welcome you and kind of walk through our agenda for the day. And then we're going to get into the questions and kind of the rules of order for our breakout session. So I just want to welcome you to Cross-Cultural Understanding. And let me just kind of preview the hour first. I'm going to begin with a brief capture of main points. So I can't talk about everything in the cross-cultural module, but I will pull out things that are specific to dealing with perceptions of time and culture. And then once we've discussed the review, like Gabby said, you're going to be placed into breakout rooms with a facilitator, and you're going to discuss questions from the lesson related to time and culture. And then I'll kind of go over some instructions for the groups at that time. And then once you do the breakout groups for about 30 minutes, we're going to come back together and debrief. So very often we look at other cultures through our own lens. Sometimes when I do workshops, I walk in with sunglasses on, and I use the sunglasses to talk about the fact that each of us has our own cultural lens. And when I see the world, right, with my sunglasses, with my lens, I see through my own eyes. And then someone else has on their shades, right, and they see the world through their eyes. So a lot of what we talked about with cross-cultural understanding is really priming ourselves to be more adept at interacting across culture. So this is especially true, this notion of the lens, when we look at the element of time. And so when we talk about intercultural communication, we call this chronemics, the study of time across culture. So in the module, we learned that each culture has its own characteristics. And as such, we're going to see time a little differently. One of the things that we focused on in the module was hallmarks of American culture. So within that, we learned that Americans tend to be a bit more individualistic. I think we talked about individualism, interdependence, collectivism, and that we tend to be more direct communicators. So I think in that section, we talked about high context cultures and low context cultures. High context meaning you leave a lot in terms of meaning and discussion or context, the environment, what's the context within which whatever we're talking about was said. And with low context, we don't leave as much room. And so for many Americans, the phrase that I put in my notes is, we say what we mean and mean what we say. And so that's one of the phrases. That Americans also tend to see time as more linear. And so I'm gonna kind of hinge what I'm talking about today on this idea of being linear versus maybe being cyclical when we look at issues of time. In terms of perceptions, Americans structure their lives around clear moments in time. So people will talk about, an anniversary having a great meaning, or in workspaces, having some kind of a timeline for a project, that'll be one of the questions we ask as we're setting the parameters for a project. Deadlines would be another aspect of this. And so a lot of importance is placed on this idea of being, getting things done and being goal oriented. They use time as markers to signify important moments of growth in a person's career, in a person's life. Even when we talk about negotiations, for instance, in business, they're often stressful because of the need to adhere to a certain kind of timeline. Americans may not think as much about how relationships might be affected by time constraints as a primary concern. That might be more of a secondary concern in this whole idea of time being linear. And then when we look at other cultures, time may be more cyclical. So other cultures could see time as having no real, beginning or ending. One of the examples that I used in the module talked about a group of students in a theater group where I live, in the town where I live, traveling abroad. And they were in culture shock. And that's one of the concepts from the module as well, but they were in experienced culture shock because as they traveled, they were on the continent of Africa, and I believe they were in Senegal, but it was, crazy for them because, they were told to show up at a particular time and they were like, okay, we're ready to sing, we're ready to perform, we're ready to go. And the other group had not arrived because in that culture, time was not seen in the same way. So it was more cyclical, kind of like time, we're in the moment kind of concept of time. And so they talk about it in the performance that they did when they got back. And they talked about how over time, I think they were there for up to a month, but over time, they learned how to flow. One of the concepts we talked about was being bicultural and learning how to flow in and out of cultures. And so that was one of the things they had to learn while they were there. They said if they were going to survive was to really think about time differently. But one of the things that it did was it gave them a chance to really develop relationships and to develop that social aspect. And Gabby, you'll signal me when I'm talking too much and I need to shift to the next thing.
Yeah, take whatever time you need. I'm ready whenever you are. So,
okay. Yeah, so some cultures I put in my notes see time as constraining. And so a couple examples before we go into our breakouts that I put in my notes. I had an experience several years ago where I had to travel to Jamaica for a new business presentation. And time was totally different than what I was used to. Here we were for a business presentation, and we showed up early, we were ready to go. And when we got there, we determined that time was so different there. It was just kind of, again, in the moment. Time was more cyclical. And so what was more important to them was really developing socially and getting to know us. And we were showing up like, okay, when does the meeting start? And they were like, the meeting is secondary, we just want to spend some time. So another way of kind of looking at time. So we're going to go into our breakout sessions. And what you see here on your screen is some of the questions that we're going to deal with in the breakout sessions. So I'll read through the questions and then talk about how things will go in the breakout session, and then you'll be put into your groups, and then I'll see you on the other side. So for the discussion questions, we're interested in how is time perceived in your culture? And so think about a time when you've traveled abroad, maybe and time was different than it was in your home country. And then I'd like you to kind of share out, right, and how time was perceived in that environment. And then what adjustments did you have to make? And then as you think about coming to the US, what adjustments might you have to make coming here? And so specifically related to the issue of time. And one of the things that we want you to do when you go into your breakout rooms, you'll like show up and you'll just be there with a group of people. Designate one person to serve as the scribe. And this is the person who's going to kind of take notes and capture some of the discussion, some themes from the discussion. When we come back together, so the facilitators will facilitate the questions. And when we come back together, I'm going to welcome the scribe to kind of unmute yourself and then share out with us on the back end. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms, and I'll see you on the back end.
Great. Thank you so much, Danielle, for sharing your thoughts on that. So I'm about to open the breakout rooms. As per usual, it'll just take you over there. We will spend 30 minutes in breakout rooms, and then we will come back together at that time to debrief and wrap up. So I will see you all in about a half an hour.
Wow. Okay, so that's how it goes, huh?
That's how it goes.
All right. Did I take too long?
That was actually perfect.
Oh, good. Okay.
That was like the perfect amount of time. So
okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Speaking of time, you had a very good sense of time there.
I, had my phone here, and then I was like, okay, if I set a timer quickly, will it make noise? And so I just, got scared and didn't use it.
Yeah, no, that worked out perfectly.
Okay, so then I should just be close by and then be ready to go back. Now let's see, I should be ready by 8:30, right? Like about 15, 20 minutes. And
yeah.
Stick around.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, and then when we come back together, is it going to be the same? Like, will you talk first or will I talk first?
What do you prefer? We could do either way.
I guess just, let me see, what do I have to do? I'm just welcoming them back and then asking for, going over the questions again, right? Shouldn't we do that? And then asking for the scribe to kind of share. Do you think the scribes will need a moment? No, they'll be waiting on each other. It'll probably,
what do you mean?
You know how when they come back together, whatever notes they've taken. I think when I did this for Ford, when I had my group, I typed things out, and then I was still kind of organizing my thoughts when we came back together. So if somebody else went first, it gave me a minute to just finish up my notes.
Right.
So I think they probably can do that while I go back over the questions again.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you want to just kind of jump back in, or do you want me to
if you could signal me, and just say welcome back, and then say, now we're gonna kind of debrief.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Hi there. And we are in breakout rooms right now. You should be able to join yours by either selecting a breakout room. You'll either see a breakout room icon on the bottom of your screen, or sometimes if you click on the more icon and then select breakout rooms, you can join that way as well. If you're having issues, let me know. Oh, I see you chatted me. Let me respond.